Hey all, welcome to another video with me, Varun on Tech Tablet. In this video, we would be talking about the second part of the second unit of AKNU syllabus. And in the last two videos, we've already covered Unit 1 and we have completed the first part of Unit 2. So together, let us learn, explore, and code. So like discussed in this specific video, we will be seeing what to cover today. In this specific slide. The first topic would be control structures, which is what we'll begin with. Then we will be looking into what is functions, what are functions, how do they help us. Then we'll be understanding what is packages, what are the different data input output methods, right? We read a lot of data files, right? So we'll be looking at that. We would also be looking at what is apply function, what are variables, what are operators in R. We've already taken a look at this, at least at a basic level yesterday. And then we have arithmetic operators. So these are the basic topics that we would be looking at, not in specific order though. However, operators and arithmetic operators, I am assuming you have completed these two topics, that is 7 and 8 yesterday. Okay. If you have practiced, then I don't think you need to go through it once again. So firstly, we'll start with the conditional statements that we have in our language, or I think these are the conditional statements that we have in most of the languages, right? To be honest. So the first one is if statement. Now, if statement is used when you have at least, one factor that needs to be satisfied, right? Now, what before going into if and if else or, other conditional statements, let us understand what exactly do they do. These are, basically the lines of code that execute your final action when a specific condition is met. And I think that's exactly what you'll see here, to execute different blocks based on whether specific conditions are met. So if the condition is met, then you would notice how they are, very easily able to execute the loop. And in this way, your logic would be satisfied every time. Now, for example, let us say you are going into an application, and if it is a male, you would be having different set of options, and if it is a female, you would be having different set of options. How would these happen? Or else, now here we have two logics, that is male or female. Now, let us say a specific offer is only valid for those people who are above 40 years of age. Now, here there's only one condition, right? Now, in any case like this, we would be using an if statement. So here you can see the input is like, 10. And here I'm giving a condition that if x is greater than 5, then print the output, which is x is greater than 5. Now, this is the same request that I have for you again. If in case you're very seriously practicing or looking forward to learn our language, then I think you should practice these on your system at least once. You could pause the system, you could pause the video, just copy them down, execute, and I'm sure you would be able to have an answer. And you would be able to understand them right here. Now then we have something called as if else. Now if else is used when there are two conditions, like I have a male and I have a female. In that case, you would be using if else. So here you can see I'm again, kind of working on very similar logic, like if I'm considering an input, with, okay. Yeah, I'm considering an input with the number 3, and then I am, kind of giving a logic. So if the value of x is greater than 5, then you would be printing x as the value of greater than 5. Else it would be printing that the value is not greater than 5. And whatever is the value that you have in your print command is the similar thing that you would be looking at the output. Now pause the video and tell me which of these two answers you would be having in the output. It's okay to be wrong, but it's not okay not to practice. So yeah, do not forget and let me know it in the chat box. Going further, you have a for loop and a while loop. Now, what does a for loop do? It basically iterates over an element for a number of times. So now let us say here I'm saying I want to print values from 1 to 3. So now whenever I use a for loop, the loop would automatically get terminated when it prints the values of 1, 2, and 3 and it terminates, right? So it basically executes the action or it iterates the action over a given sequence. Then you have a while loop. While loop only works as long as the condition is true. So for example, here what we're doing is I am telling my system that I want you to count up to 3, and to count up to 3 I'm giving the input variable as 1. Okay, so 1 would be the counter. Now from here I'm saying that execute this action only till it is lesser than or equal to 3. So what would happen is as the system reaches 1, it would go in again. It would again get into the counter of 2. Then it would again, go, it would 3. And once it satisfies this condition, right? Because this here is the condition that we're talking about. Now, once this condition is satisfied, you will notice that there is no other uh, element that it needs to work on. So as soon as you have the 3 in the output, the loop gets terminated immediately. So this is how loops, for loop and while loop work. So we have covered 4 loops right now. The first one is if, the second one is if else, the third one is for, and the fourth one is while. Do not forget, I mean, 2 conditional statements and 2 loops, and then we are looking at another couple of them, that is repeat, break, and next, right? So now let us look at repeat. I think the name itself is pretty, understandable. So when you use the word repeat, it just goes into an indefinite loop until you apply on break, or until you use the key term break. The loop keeps on repeating on and on and on and on and on, right? So it, like you can see, it executes code indefinitely. I think this is a very important word here, until you explicitly specify where it needs to be stopped. Then you have break and next. So what break does is it kind of stops the loop, or it breaks the loop right there. And next, okay, so we have two statements here. The first one, okay, so we have 2 statements here. The first one being break and the second one being next. Now what does break do? Break kind of exits the loop. Okay, keep things very clear here. It exits the loop and it takes you into the next loop, while next it skips the current iteration. Okay, so one just skips the current iteration, the other one breaks the loop and it goes forward. So these are very important for you to remember when you talk about each of these. Then we have the apply family. So the apply statement, or the apply function. Now apply is basically an inbuilt function in R. Please remember that. So here you can see the apply family of functions in R. Okay, so it's basically a function. Now what does apply do? Apply basically works like a loop. Okay, again please pay attention to the words here. It works like a loop. It's not a loop. All right, it works like a loop, and it kind of performs different actions over arrays, list. So you have one is an array, the second one is a list, the third one is a subset of vector. So on any of these, you can work with your apply function, right? Now, what does apply function do, or how does apply function make things beneficial for us? So you can avoid the for loop when you're using apply function. All right. Now, these functions are crucial for vectorized computation. So if you can see here, it is very clearly written that these are very useful for vectorized computations and can improve the code readability and performance. So what would be happening? The readability of your code and thereby the performance of your code would increase. Now, there are different types of apply functions, which is the reason why they say it is an apply family and not just a singular word. Okay, now what happens when you're using apply function? Let us understand each of these with a small example that's written here. The only thing you need to do is practice, right? So first one is a basic apply. Now what happens here? You can see what it's saying. It says that it applies a function to rows or columns of a matrix. Okay, pay attention to the words here. The second one is lapply. Lapply, I think L here stands for list, which is the reason why it applies the function to each element of a list or a vector. And this would become very easy for you to remember, right? So you can apply, you can take in a list as an input, and then you can use lapply. Now, I want you people to, kind of practice these and check the output and probably post the outputs in the comment section. So when I see, comments flowing in, it would give me, a better energy to make more videos, right? And also it would give me a confidence that yes, people who are listening are actually genuinely trying to learn and understand, right? So then we have S apply. S apply is a simplified version of L apply. So it also does the same thing. It gives you a matrix or a vector. And when we talk about L apply gives you a list only. Now, these are things that you would be knowing when you kind of work hands-on. Then you have T apply. T apply is generally grouped over a subset. Okay, so whenever you have a subset within a grouped subset, that's when you would be using T apply. The most important topic of any coding platform, it could be R or Python or SQL or anything, how to write a function. Now, before that, what is a function? So function is basically a predefined code, like you all say, but function has many predefined codes. Now, what do we need these predefined codes for? They are basically used so you can reuse them to perform a single related action. For example, every time I want to delete a value, or every time I want to read a file, or every time I want to perform a certain action that's repetitive, then how will I do it? To do this, we have functions. Now, functions are basically of two types. The first one is a user-defined function, right? Now, this is the one that we would be looking at. So here we would be learning how to create a function, what is a function, and different aspects about it. So the one is user-defined function. The second one is a inbuilt or a system-based function. Okay, inbuilt function. Now, be it user-defined function or be it inbuilt function, both of them do the same thing, right? They try to give you a reusability of the code, so it becomes easy for you to work on different kinds of codes, or it becomes easy for you to be able to avoid repetition again and again, and thereby you could streamline, which is you could fasten your your code with very simple needs as and when. Now, what is a function, or how would you define a function? So as you can see, they are created using function keyword followed by arguments and a function body. So let us understand what it is. So the first element or the first line that you're seeing here, we are trying to create a function, as simple as that. Okay, now this is the instantiation of function within which you're just typing print hello R function. So whenever you execute this function now, whenever you execute it, you would be seeing the output that is hello from R function, right? In fact, I would recommend all of you to try it right away. Put the video on pause, try it, and let me know in the chat box if you've been able to get an answer. Then the second variant is function with arguments. So here what I'm doing is I'm taking a function with the name inside it. Now this name would be given a reference here. Now this reference would be coming here. So every time I execute this function, that is greet and Alice, it would say hello Alice. So what do you think happens in your phone? Like whenever you log into your phone for the first time, or if you're using your phone for the first time, you see that there is hello user or welcome Rahul or welcome Varun or welcome whatever name you have. How does this come? Probably there's a function inside that takes your name as an input first and it welcomes you later, right? Using the specific function. So there are many ways to achieve this. Using functions is one of the best ways that is known. Uh, then you have writing functions in R. So we all know how to write functions in R, right? So to that, let us understand now that you've already practiced how to write basic functions. Now let us see how to return the values from a function and how to return values when there is, an explicit, value, and how to return values when there are multiple arguments. So let us look at both of these right now. Again, the condition is for you to practice them so you can understand them once and for all. So when you want to get the output of a function, right, we have something called as return. Now, this return, what it does is it explicitly defines that you're looking for an output from this specific function. If there is no return that is specified, then the last evaluated expression would be returned. Okay, which means if there is no specific value that you would be adding or that you would be giving, then probably the addition here would not happen just like this, and you would not be able to see the output immediately. Right. So what we're doing is I am considering a basic function with two values a and b, and I'm saying that like the values here a and b will get added, right? So here addition function is happening, and these values within the result are to be returned. Okay. Now here I'm giving the input values, that is, with some random, variable, and I'm saying add numbers. Now this add numbers is the name of the function. Within this, I'm taking two values, which would be a and b, and these values would be printed in the output. All right. Now again, if there is, default arguments. So here you would be assigning values to parameters. So they are used when the caller does not provide them. Okay. Now here we are trying to increase the flexibility of a function a bit more. All right. Now, if you can probably go ahead and check values, then I think you would be having a better understanding over what we're saying. So here what I'm doing is I'm creating a simple function like power calculate. Okay, so we're trying to calculate the exponential values, within which I'm saying that the function would have a base and the exponent value would be 2. So when I do this and I say return base power exponent, you can see how when I give the value of 4, it is giving me a 16. And when I give the value of, overwriting the, default exponent, then it is giving me 64. So 4 comma 3, what is it doing? I've already given you the answer. It is overriding the default exponent, which means in the upper line, which is here, we are having 4 power 2, which is going into the code. However, in the lower code, because you are overriding this 2 with 3, you would be having 4 power 3, which is why you are having a value of 64, right? So if you can understand basic functions like these, how they work, what is their working pattern, then I think you should be very easily able to handle all of these. Now comes the next very important topic, that is our packages. Packages or libraries. They're basically the same thing, different ways of calling them. Now, what is a package? Okay. A package is a library, and a library or a package is basically a pre-built collection or a pre-built repository of different functions of similar type. Let us understand what I'm trying to say. Let me first write it down. I'm saying it has different functions related to single type. Again, this is not a textbook English. What I mean here is, let us say you're working on ggplot2, okay, which is a very famous library. Now, this library is used for graphs. So when you're working on ggplot2, you cannot read an input file using ggplot2, because in ggplot2 you would be able to work on graphs. Likewise, when you're working on a library named dplyr, we would be looking at all of these in the practice session, or when we move on to your coding session, to be very precise. You have your list of practicals, right? So we'll be looking at all of these in those practical exercises. But now, when you're working on dplyr, which is, another, very famous library, dplyr. It's a very famous library for data manipulation. Now, when you're working on dplyr, it would be very wrong of you to think that, you would be generating graphs using dplyr. Probably very basic graphs if possible, but nothing beyond that, right? So when we are working on a package, now that you know what is a package is a collection of different functions, data, and documentation related to a specific type or related to a specific functionality. You can either say it's a specific functionality or, related to a specific type of activity. Both of them mean the same. So to install a package, you can usually go and, type in this keyword, that is install dot packages, provide the name of the package, and you would be able to see the package. Now, please note, when you're doing that, you are expected to give your name of the package in double quotes, which is the reason why you see that within the packages you have double quotes. I'm just rewriting it again for visual clarity. Then you would be loading the package. Once you install the package, it's not done. So the first step is to understand what package you want. The second step is to download the needed package. The third step is to load the package that you have, installed, and finally use it. And there are many popular packages to that, like just a couple of examples have been covered. ggplot2, which is for visualization, tidyr, which is to tidy your data, dplyr is for data manipulation, reader is to, import different varieties of data, because not every time in real, parlance you would be using only CSV files, right? Now, this is probably, I think, the last topic in your unit 2, that is how to read files. So to read a CSV file, you could very easily, just use the reader package and read a file. So here, what I would want you to do is you can go to any, source you want. You're free to do that. And the next thing you would be needing to do is download a data set. Okay, you can download any data set you want. Again, this is just for practice, but when you download a data set, ensure you're downloading the data set in 3 to 4 formats. The first one is a CSV format. The second one is an XML format. The third one is a JSON format. Now, if you can download in all of these, then I think you would be having one separate code file that you could use for your reference whenever you want, just how to read the data. So let us say you have downloaded the data. Now, this is exactly what you would be doing, that you would be creating a variable and saying read CSV. Okay, and you should be able to see the output. Now, yeah, here also, like, there are multiple parameters that you can use within it, like you want the header. Now, when you say header equal to true, the first row would be considered as the column name. You can use a separator or a delimiter with a comma. You can, directly use strings as factors. So all these become input parameters for you when you're giving in your read CSV. Now, what does a parameter basically do? It gives you the capability to give 3-4 conditions within one single input, so you can see the output in your desired format to the closest possibility, right? Then you can read Excel files. Okay, please do not forget that .csv and .excel and .xls are all different formats. These are not the same format, and it's not that all of these would work in similar way. They have small differences. If you're really interested, and I think you're learning sincerely, then write down in the chat box what is the difference between a CSV file, an Excel file, and an XLS file. I think that would be your exercise for this video. Right. The next one would be to read an Excel file. I think this code should do the job for you as to how you could read the Excel file. Also, do not forget Excel has the capacity to maintain multiple sheets. So now let us say you only want to read a specific sheet like sheet 3 or sheet 4 only. Even that is pretty much possible when you're reading an Excel file. right? And to open Excel files, you can just say XLSX. Now, when you say that, your file would get opened. Then you have XML files. Now, to read an XML file, you would firstly have to install a package. That is what you're seeing here exactly. So you would say install packages, XML package, and once that is done, your system is now ready to read the files. So the first thing that you would have to do is to parse the file. Now, please do not forget, XML is an offshoot of HTML, right? It is an extensible, it's a markup language. Like an XML is also a markup language, just like HTML, right? So what does this do? It is, both human readable and machine readable. I think that's the beauty of XML file. And it is very widely used for data exchange between systems, specifically for structured, data. So here I would be installing the XML package first. I would be parsing the XML file. Then I would be extracting the information which is in the Excel. And finally, I would be converting it into a data frame. Now, this is what you are expected to do when you are practicing on reading a file and also saving a file. It's not important that you just read the file. You should also know how to save it back into the system as per the need. Then you have JSON. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. Okay, now this is the abbreviation of JSON file. Now, in R, you can work on JSON files as well. That's the beauty of R. It's, like I said, it's an IDE, integrated development environment. So you would be able to do a lot. So to use JSON file, you got to install JSON Lite in the first place. Like you can see here, it's very clearly and specifically written. And from JSON Lite, you can use from JSON and you can read or fetch information from any API, that is working or onboarding, right? And once you have that, you could, once you've read the data, you can use prettify is equal to true or pretty is equal to true. And when you use pretty equal to true, the output would be arranged in hierarchical format. So you would be able to see name, within name you have initial, salary, etc. Then you have college, within college or within education you have ABCD. So it would arrange the look for you in a hierarchical manner, and that should do a lot of visual relax when you look at the view. So with this, I think we have completed unit 2 on R, on basics of R programming as per the syllabus again. All right, in the next video, we would be looking at the unit 3 of R programming. Okay, so in again, I just want all of you to remember that this is exactly as per AKNU syllabus, right? AKNU's latest syllabus again. Now, if just a few of you might have a doubt if this is the latest syllabus or not. So yeah, this is the latest syllabus, and I would be making a lot more videos going ahead on almost all subjects. And in the end, I would also be posting question and answers that are important for you to groom up for your exam. So do stay tuned, and if you like the video, hit the bell icon and the subscribe button. And I would be coming back to you in the next video with some more topics to work on. Thank you very much. You all have a great day ahead.